All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Rick Andresen. I am going to be the professor for this Spanish class, Spanish 1101, Section 5. I am coming to you from Arizona. If you read my bio, you'll know I'm a chiropractor by profession, working on my master's degree, and I've been given the chance to teach this couple sections of Spanish. So you'll often see me in my office. I'm blurring the background just to keep everything confidential from patients. I usually wear scrubs to work or just some chill clothes. So anyway, let's go through a couple of things. I wanted to give you an introduction to what we're going to be looking at this week. And each week I will try to make a couple PowerPoint recordings so we can get to know each other. You can see me, hear me, and I'll give you some tips on what we're learning for this week. So this week we're talking about Capítulo 1, about some vocabulary words, in particular in this part of the lesson. We'll be talking about different kinds of pronunciation of the Spanish alphabet and some of the common words and phrases you're going to be learning, and then talk about punctuation and accent marks and the tildes that you see in Spanish. So let's go through a couple things. The key, obviously the base, is going to be the Spanish alphabet. One great thing about Spanish is it can be pronounced perfectly. Even if you don't know what you're saying or don't understand what you're hearing, there's no reason why you can't have great pronunciation in Spanish. In Spanish, the vowels are always constant. They always sound the exact same way. And consonants, same thing. Consonants, some of them have a couple different sounds depending on what vowel precedes them, like a CA, which is a hard K sound, versus a CE, which is a soft S sound. So we'll go through those things. But you're going to learn the Spanish alphabet. And with this, knowing the Spanish alphabet, you can spell things to people. People can spell things to you, and you'll be able to get a great base for that. So we're going to go through, I'm going to read each of the letters in Spanish with a Spanish pronunciation. I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to repeat it and pause. And the idea is for you to repeat it after me, so you can hear it and then hear yourself saying it. If you're listening to this someplace where you can't really talk out loud, then just come back to it later. But you want to get to where you memorize the Spanish alphabet and its different pronunciations. You'll notice just by looking at it, there are a couple different letters that are different. The two on the left side, you got the CH, which in Spanish is pronounced ch, and it's one letter. Even though there are two different letters, it's counted as one letter in Spanish. And then the double L is the eye, which is a Y sound, and that's considered one letter in Spanish. And then the Nye, which is the N with a little tilde over top on the right column, pronounced Nye, and it's like the English word mañana, or the Spanish word mañana, or the English word canyon, which is actually a Spanish word. So it's that ña sound, it's that really nasal sound. So we're going to go through each of these letters. I'll repeat it, or I'll say it aloud and invite you to repeat it after me. So A, B, B, C, C, Che, Che, D, D, E, F, F, G, G. You'll notice that the G is a guttural sound. It really starts in your throat. So you're going to get some throat sound of that to make it right. H, H, E, J, same thing, guttural, J, K, L, A, M, M, N, N, Nye, Nye, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W. Notice that in Spanish, the W sound, in English, double U, in Spanish, it's double V. X, Y. In Spanish, the name for Y, Y, literally means Greek eye. It is becoming more common in other countries or other cultures to use the word ye, which is another way to pronounce the letter Y. But Y is the most common way. Zeta, zeta. And for zeta, there are two pronunciations, one with the Z and one with the C. And in different parts of Spain, for example, where they speak with a zeta, they'll pronounce that zeta with almost a TH sound in front. So you've been introduced to the Spanish alphabet. You'll need to memorize that and memorize the different sounds in Panorama in your textbook. There's another example of this with some recordings. So I want you to go through that a couple times. You'll want to go through that a couple times and learn how to pronounce the Spanish alphabet. Okay, some other things in Spanish. Again, the vowels are the most important part. The vowels are consistent all the way through. They always make the same sound each time. In English, we have what's called a schwa sound. If you're into the English language much, it's that sound that we put in some words. And in Spanish, there is no change. If the vowel is at the beginning, middle, or end of a sentence, it's always pronounced the same way. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the double R, the ñe, the double L are all different sounds in Spanish that we don't really have in English, but those are very important, consistent sounds throughout Spanish. So the vowels are A, E, I, O, U. So I'm going to repeat those. That's E-A-I-O-U. You can see in this box. I'm going to do that again. So we've already gone through the alphabet, but let's go through the vowels specifically. So A, E, I, O, U. And if you didn't quite get that, then pause and rewind it. But especially you want to watch the formation of my mouth to see how those sounds are made. They're all very right up front. The E sound for the I is really a lateral. Your mouth goes wide with that. And the vowels are going to be consistent. So in the white box, we have the Spanish the A. So let's look at a couple different examples. And same thing, I'll read the line and have you repeat it after me. Hola, Amanda. Hola, Amanda. So you can see that A, whether it's the beginning of the word, the middle, or the end of the word, it's still always pronounced A. Encantada, Señora Paz. Encantada, Señora Paz. Hasta mañana, mamá. So a lot of A's. Hasta mañana, mamá. Hasta la vista, Marta. Hasta la vista, Marta. Hasta la vista, Ana. Hasta la vista, Ana. So notice in English we'd say Anna. So that in that one letter, that one word A and A, the A is going to have two different sounds. Anna, and that at the end is that schwa sound I was talking about. Whereas in Spanish, that A is always going to be consistent. Ana, whether it's the beginning or the end of that word. Let's look at the E. The Spanish, what we call E, is in Spanish A. So a couple of sentences here. It's pronounced like the English word ate or bet is a better word for me. So if you think of that soft, that short E sound, bet, get, that's the consistent pronunciation of the Spanish E. Buenas noches, Teresa. Buenas noches, Teresa. ¿De dónde eres? ¿De dónde eres? ¿Es el señor Pérez? ¿Es el señor Pérez? ¿Es de Los Ángeles? ¿Es de Los Ángeles? Okay, so again, there's some examples in the textbook, again, with somebody else pronouncing it, these same phrases, so you can hear a couple different ways, but you want to make sure that you get those vowels so that you can be consistent with the vowels in Spanish. So it goes a long way for your pronunciation. Okay, the next three vowels are I, O, and U. And again, in Spanish, the I is E. So you want to make sure you can understand, get that in your head, because when we say E in Spanish, talking about the I, not the E. So again, a couple examples. In English, the word C, or the double E sound, is the equivalent of the Spanish I sound. So it's that long E. El chino es difícil. El chino es difícil. So again, it's the E sound. That's that wide way of making your mouth. El inglés es fácil. El inglés es fácil. Es el domicilio de Mimi. Es el domicilio de Mimi. Then we have the Spanish O. And again, it's a short, pure vowel. There's no diphthong, there's no glide to it. It's just no. And a glide means at the end of our English word, sometimes we'll drop off O, and O will come up and then we'll let it glide down. In Spanish, there isn't. It's just always a consistent, short, pure vowel, like the word no. Yo no tomo. Yo no tomo. Trabajo con Rodolfo. Trabajo con Rodolfo. Hablo un poco de chino. Hablo un poco de chino. And then we come to the Spanish you, which is like the word sue or boo. So it's that ooh, when you want to get your right there. Makes me think of Sebastian, Little Mermaid. So the Spanish U is shorter than the English U. It corresponds to that UE sound or the double O sound, like in boo. Mucho gusto, Julio. Mucho gusto, Julio. Laura usa uniforme. Laura usa uniforme. Estudia en la universidad. Estudia en la universidad. When you pronounce the Spanish U or the U, you want to see your lips want to go forward. That's how you're going to get that nice rounding tone for your Spanish there in the U. So we have A, E, I, O, and U, the 5 Spanish vowels. Okay, we're going to talk about diacritic marks. And this example up in the top right corner, that's a pyramid in Chichen Itza, Mexico. So those 3 words are each pronounced differently than they would be without the accent marks. So the accent marks tell you that we're going to break a rule of pronunciation. So we have 2 different kind of marks. One is the accent mark, and I'm sorry, that first bullet point there, that accent mark looks like a comma. It should be raised up. Don't know what happened there, but that's an accent mark. And in Spanish, the accent marks go from lower left to the upper right. You'll see as you look at your international keyboard, in Italy or in Italian, the accent marks go the other way. So in Spanish, they go from lower left to upper right. And then it tells us that we're going to pronounce that syllable, give more emphasis on that syllable. And then there's a tilde. The tilde is a curve that goes on top of the N that makes it an Nye as opposed to a regular N. So the two rules for pronunciation are that if the word does not have an accent, okay, it follows a basic pattern. And that is that if the word ends in a consonant other than N or S, or then you're going to stress that last syllable. So if it's consonant other than N or S, the accent mark or the stress mark goes on the last syllable, even without a written accent. If the word ends in a vowel or N or S, then you stress the second to the last syllable. And keep in mind that if it's a 2-syllable word, the second to the last becomes the first syllable, right? If it's a 3-syllable word, then the second to the last becomes the second syllable. So it's going to look like a lot of times it's the first syllable, but that's because it's only the second to the last in a 2-syllable word. So some examples I have here: azul, azul. Azul ends in an L, which is a consonant other than N or S. And so the stress goes on that last syllable, azul. Feliz, feliz. And again, it ends in a consonant other than N or S, so the accent goes on the last syllable. Pizarra, pizarra. That ends in a vowel, so the accent goes on the second to the last syllable, which in this case is the middle syllable. Dulce, dulce. Ends in a consonant, so the accent goes on that second to the last syllable. Comes, comes. Ends in an S, so the accent goes on the second to the last syllable. Hablan, hablan. Ends in an N, so the accent goes on the second to the last syllable. So again, without even knowing what the word mean, you have enough tools to be able to pronounce most every word perfectly. You know what the accent, you know what the vowels sound like, you know what the consonants sound like, and now you know the rules for accenting. So you can have a great advantage. Even before you understand Spanish, you can speak it very well. Okay, and pages 2 and 34, pages 2 and 4 in Panorama, there is some basic vocabulary that we're going to be learning this week. And these are really what we call saludos. Saludos mean greetings. And so there is the same list is there with some opportunities for you to listen to them being pronounced. I'm going to go through the first one where it says más vocabulario on the left side, the long box. the long rectangle, and I'm going to pronounce those words for you and give you again a second just to repeat it back so you can hear yourself saying. Hola. Hola means hi. Buenos días. Buenos días. Buenas noches. Buenas noches. Hasta la vista. And it's hard not to throw a little terminator in there, baby at the end. Hasta la vista. Hasta pronto. Hasta pronto. ¿Cómo se llama usted? ¿Cómo se llama usted? A lot of vowels and a lot of good chance for you to use your pure vowels in that phrase. Le presento a, and the ... means you would insert the person's name there. So, le presento a Maria. Let me introduce you to Maria. Te presento a, and again the person's name. And the difference will come to here in another lesson where there's two different forms of the verb, the word you in Spanish, depending if you're talking formally or familiarly to somebody. El nombre means somebody's name. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? Again, we have a word that ends in S, and so we're breaking that rule. Normally, with the word ends in S, we're going to accent on the second to the last syllable, but we've got a written accent there, which changes that rule, breaks that rule, and puts the accent where the accent is. So, ¿cómo estás? No muy bien. No muy bien. Not very well. ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? What's going on? What's happening? Por favor. Por favor. It's please. De nada. De nada. You're welcome. No hay de qué. No hay de qué. Four different words. It means also another way of saying you're welcome. Lo siento. Lo siento. Here we've got our first diphthong, that IE together, but each vowel still makes its pure sound. IE, siento, lo siento. Gracias. I bet you know what that one means. Gracias. And then muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Many thanks, or thanks a lot. Okay, so you've got another column there, saludos. You got some despedidas. And go through and practice those. Go back to those pages in Panorama, and you got some examples there of them being pronounced, and practice your pronunciation. Some additional vocabulary. Different ways of saying ¿cómo está? ¿Cómo está usted? Is a formal way of asking somebody how are you, and we'll go what the rules are. But right now you're just working on learning that vocabulary and the pronunciation. ¿Cómo estás? That's a familiar way of saying how are you. ¿Qué hay de nuevo? ¿Qué hay de nuevo? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué tal? ¿Qué tal? Muy bien, gracias. Muy bien, gracias. Nada. Nada means nothing. No muy bien. No muy bien. Not very well. And regular. Regular. That's first R. You're gonna work on that flipping, that trilling sound. Regular. Then we have some títulos, some titles of people. Señor, and the abbreviation is SR, means Mr. or Sir, and another fancy word is Don, like in Zorro. If you're watching Zorro, Don Diego de la Vega. Don just is an honorific title for Sir. Señora is abbreviated SRA. Señora. Doña is, again, an honorific way. Señorita is abbreviated SRTA, and that's Miss. That would be an unmarried woman. And then on the next column, ¿de dónde es usted? ¿De dónde es usted? The formal way, and the familiar way, ¿de dónde eres? ¿De dónde eres? Soy de. Soy is the form of saying I am. So soy de, I'm from. Soy de Arizona. Soy de Idaho. Soy de Mexico. So soy de is how you would say I'm from. And then there's some additional words. Cuánto, cuántos, cuánta, cuántas. We'll have a lesson on that here soon. How much or how many. De quién. It literally means of who or of whom. So whose is it? De quién es este lápiz? Of whom is this? Oh, yeah, you see that pen. Of whom is this pen? Whose pen is this? De quién es este lápiz? And then the word I, we'll have a lesson on that as well. I means there is, no I, there is or there isn't, there are, there aren't. I is a very, very useful phrase because it's one word means both there is and there are. It doesn't change for plurality. So I or no I. And then we'll look at the verb ser. Ser is the most common verb in Spanish. It means to be. And we'll look at its different conjugations and its different meanings. All right, a couple different also vocabulary words, different countries, because we talk about de donde es or soy de, where are you from, where am I from? So some pronunciation of countries in Spanish. Argentina, Costa Rica, Cuba, Ecuador, España, Estados Unidos, Mexico, Puerto Rico. So most of the countries look very similar and are spelled the same, but we would pronounce them with a Spanish accent. So there you go, some countries. And then presentación is just a way of introducing yourself. We've already had some of these, but let's go through these different ones. ¿Cómo se llama usted? ¿Cómo se llama usted? No, I hear a lot of errors when I hear this. People say, ¿Cómo se llama usted? Because that SE in English looks like it could be say or C. But remember that E is short, so say, ¿Cómo se llama usted? What's your name for a formal? ¿Cómo te llamas? Is a familiar way of saying what's your name. Me llamo, my name is, and it literally means I am called or I call myself. Me llamo Rick. Y tú and you for familiar form, or y usted for a formal form. So me llamo Rick. Y usted, I'm inviting you to ask, what your name is. So me llamo Rick. ¿Y usted cómo se llama? Me llamo Rick. ¿Y tú cómo te llamas? Mucho gusto. Pleased to meet you. It literally means much joy, much pleasure. El gusto es mío. The pleasure is mine. And then one word that has our first gender change to it. Encantado means delighted or pleased to meet you. And if you're a female, encantada. So that last O would change to an A if you speaking is a female. So encantado or encantada. Igualmente literally means equally, but likewise, igualmente. If somebody says, nice to meet you, if they say to you, mucho gusto, then you could say igualmente. I also am pleased to meet you. Este es, you're introducing something or somebody. Este means this. Esta is if it's a female, So este es mi hermano, or este es mi amigo. This is my friend. This is my brother. Esta es mi hermana. Esta es mi amiga. Le presento, we had on the last page, I'd like to introduce you to, and that's the le means it's a formal form, or te presento means you're talking to somebody familiarly. And el nombre is a word for name in Spanish. So some basics on introductions in Spanish. Luego we have some sustantivos. Sustantivo just means a noun. And one thing that we're going to look at carefully here is that if you notice, each one of these nouns has that short little el or la in front of it. Those are called articles. That's the equivalent of the word the in Spanish, or the. And the reason we do that is because every word in Spanish has gender. And we have a lesson on that. You'll be looking at that today or tomorrow. But some of these words are difficult to know, so we teach them to you with the article in front of it. So el autobús means the bus or bus. But if you learn it with the el in front, that's going to tell you that it is a singular masculine noun. And I'll make it a little more sense to you in a minute. But you want to go through these nouns, learning both the article that goes with it and the noun itself. So I'm just going to go through these once. I'll repeat it, or I'll pronounce it, give you a second to repeat it back so you can get your pronunciation right, and then I'll go on. And again, this is back in Panorama also. You can get some more pronunciation. El autobús, la capital, el chico, la chica, la computadora. It's a 4-syllable word. It's a big one, but look at all those vowels. O, U, A, O, A. So you want to pronounce it with those vowels being pure. La computadora. Each vowel gets its time. La comunidad. El conductor. La conductora. La conversación. Another long word. La conversación. La cosa. The thing. El cuaderno means notebook. El día. el diario, el diccionario, la escuela, el estudiante, la estudiante. So this word with an L in front makes it masculine for a male, and la would make that same word feminine for a female. La foto, la foto. La fotografía is the whole complete word. It's like if you say I have a photo or a picture versus a photograph. So they both mean the same, but there's a long word and a short word. El hombre, el hombre, el joven, la joven. So again, the word joven means a young person, and it changes for el. It's the same for el or for la, and you would indicate if you're talking about a male or a female based on that article you put in front of the word. El lápiz, el lápiz, la lección, la maleta means a suitcase, la mano, your hand, el mapa, la mujer, again that J is guttural, la mujer, la nacionalidad, again a lot of vowels, just pronounce them each the proper way, la nacionalidad, el número, el país. Notice there's that accent because the word ends in S, but we're breaking that rule. El país. La palabra. Good word for practicing your A's. La palabra. El pasajero. Again, a J in your throat. La pasajera. El problema. El profesor. La profesora. El programa. El turista. La turista, el video, and in some Spanish countries they'll pronounce the word video, and that's really more of an English application there. Okay, so I'm back through. Okay, when we got to some of these parts, we talked about the two different forms of the you in Spanish. The you choose, the speaker, you choose how you're addressing that person. If you're addressing him or her formally, you use the word usted. That's the word in blue there on the second line. If you're using informal, you use the pronoun tú. Usted versus tú. Usted is formal, tú is informal. For example, ¿cómo se llama usted? What is your name? How do you call yourself? Notice that it says use the formal usted and its verb forms to speak with strangers, someone in authority over you, or to show respect. So if it's an elderly person, someone you just met, your boss, an authority figure, you would use the word usted and its different verb conjugations. The word tú is a pronoun for you. It's more informal. Using formal tú and its verb forms to speak with someone you know well, children or peers. Dating myself here, but when I teach this, I say if it's somebody that you would say dude to, then dude is going to be a tú. Somebody, if you're probably not going to, talk to your best friend's dad and call him dude, or your best friend's mom and call her dude. So that indicates that person you're speaking to a little more formally already. It's inherent in the way you're talking to somebody. So if it's a formal way, you're going to use the word usted. If it's somebody casual, informal, you're going to use the form of tú. If you're ever going to err, if you're ever not sure, then use usted. Usted is not going to offend anybody. They may think that's strange. You're talking to a 12-year-old in usted, but you're not going to offend them. If you were to go up to your boss and start talking to him in tú, then that would be offensive to the wrong person. One other way to think of it is if it's somebody you would call by their first name, then that's an informal way. Tú you would use. If it's somebody you would call Mr. or Mrs. or by a title, doctor, professor that you wouldn't really use their first name with, then you want to go with usted. And again, that will come up over and over again, and you'll get more examples of that. Okay, here's some práctica, and you're going to do this we're going to do it here together, and then you're going to do it also in Panorama. But I'm going to use the player that comes along with Panorama for this. You're going to read this scrambled conversation in the white box here. and put these phrases in order. So just pause for a second, pause the video, and figure out what you're going to do, and we'll come back and we'll look at the answers together. Okay, if you didn't have a chance to look through it, again, pause the video, but if you're back with me already, then we'll go through this. We're going to put these phrases in order. Hola, me llamo Carlos. ¿Cómo estás? Muy bien, gracias. Soy Rosabel. Mucho gusto, Rosabel. Igualmente. ¿De dónde eres, Carlos? Soy de México. ¿Y tú? Soy de Argentina. Okay, so that's just a typical get to know yourself, introduce yourself conversation that is very, very, very common and great things to know. Okay, another exercise. Complete the following dialogue, vocabulary from this chapter. Write your answers down. You'll have a chance to do that at Panorama as well, and then check your answers. So we're going to go through this. Buenos días. Buenos días, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo Carmen Sánchez. ¿De dónde eres? De Canadá. Te presento a Marisol. Encantado, or if you're female, encantada. Gracias. De nada. ¿Qué tal? Regular. ¿Qué pasa? Nada. Hasta la vista. Ciao. Hasta luego. Goodbye, etc. Adiós. So some different ways of saying some different greetings here in Spanish. Okay, same thing. Now in this case, the audio recording is going to give you the first part of this phrase, and then you're going to choose whether the correct response is in A or B.
Lección 1. Contextos. Práctica. 1. Escuchar. Listen to each question or statement, then choose the correct response.
1. ¿Cómo te llamas?
Me llamo
Dos.
Graciela.
Te presento a Juan Pablo.
Okay, so select there A or B. Mucho gusto is what you would say to that.
3. ¿De dónde es usted?
How would you answer that? A or B? Soy de Puerto Rico.
4. Muchas gracias.
No hay de qué would be the response for you're welcome.
5. Nos vemos.
Nos vemos and we'll see you later. Hasta pronto means until soon or until later.
6. ¿Qué pasa?
¿Qué pasa? Nada, nothing.
7. ¿Cómo está usted?
Muy bien, gracias.
8. Buenas tardes, señor Fernández.
Buenas tardes, ¿cómo estás? Would be the answer for that.
9. Susana, este es el señor Ramírez.
Encantada. They start by saying Susana, so we know the speaker is a
10.
female.
¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal? Regular. So. Okay, so again, you're learning the correct responses for different greetings in Spanish. All right, that's all we have for today. So good job. Go back and review these again. Listen. The big thing is just to practice. Practice listening, and then practice your pronunciation of these different phrases and the Spanish alphabet. Thanks so much. You guys did great.